There's a lot to love about the autumn season, from the color of the leaves to the crispness of the air. It's peak sweater time when it's just a tiny bit too chilly for a t-shirt and not quite cold enough for a jacket. But I've been through this before. Spooky season is my absolute favorite time of year, and not just for the slasher flicks. So every year when Halloween rolls around, I try to find a game that suits the vibe of what Halloween really means to me. We've been over the candy, the spooky little guys, and even the cozy aspect that autumn brings to the table. But one thing I'm always excited for around this time of year are the costumes. It's that time where everyone has an excuse to break out the cosplay. People are throwing Halloween parties, kids are out trick-or-treating, and even your boss is trying to brighten the mood with an office costume contest. So I thought this year, why not find a game about just that? A costume party. Let's ring in the season with a time loop murder mystery at the masquerade in the Sexy Brutale. You play as Preacher Lafcadio Boone at the eponymous casino's annual masquerade party, suddenly awoken by a bloody woman in the chapel of the expansive mansion housing the event. However, something is wrong. Terribly wrong. Shortly after you wake up, one of the casino's own staff members attacks your friend Reginald Sixpence with a shotgun, killing him in cold blood. Before you're able to process what happened to your friend, you black out, waking again at the beginning of that same night. This is when you bump into the bloody woman once again, and she explains the power she's gifted to you through your mask. You can now venture through the mansion unseen by the staff and the other guests, protected from their gaze for a short time. This is important because the staff of the casino are murderers and the guests, they're victims. Each of them will die by the end of the night, and it's your goal to intervene undetected and save each of the guests from their grisly demise. That's really it for the premise of the game too. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now it's up to you to explore the mansion and spy on the guests and the staff to figure out their motivations and how you can prevent their deaths. Some time loop mystery games can get pretty darn complicated when it comes to the structures of their puzzles. Outer Wilds, for instance, is one large mystery composed of many smaller mysteries, all strung together to form one flawless conundrum. There's no guidance and no hand-holding. The player can head in any direction at any time, balancing an incredible amount of information needed in order to progress and learn the story of the game. That's not the case with the Sexy Brutale. There's definitely a larger mystery at play here, and the game is presented as such, but the goal of the game isn't necessarily to discover what's going on with that. You're just thrown into one section of the mansion at a time where you'll be dealing with one puzzle to save one or two guests at any given moment. The structure of the puzzles are pretty clear too. The game tells you who you'll be saving, so you have a good amount of direction to get you started. Next, all you've really got to do is explore the area of the mansion that the guests die in. As you venture through room after room, you'll find plenty of objects to interact with, usually setting the scene for that section of the mansion, be it through weird paintings or scary fish or any number of other weird decor. Most of what you'll find yourself doing, however, is peeking through keyholes and listening to what the guests and staff have to say before the end of the night. This is how you'll uncover where and how they die, as well as what happened to get them in that predicament to begin with. This system has a lot of potential. Since you'll be playing as a fly on the wall, you'll be privy to any and all information that you see fit, opening the door for a pretty neat lore delivery system, for lack of a better word. Experiencing the time loop, unable to interact, you'll be witnessing the backstory of each of the characters in real time. Since you can't intervene, this serves as an interesting way to present the bulk of the narrative in true third-person perspective, instead of the usual first or even second-person perspective that's fairly standard in most games. This definitely lends itself to the feeling of spying in on your fellow guests. Knowing that they're completely unaware of your presence reinforces that sneaky investigator, secret agent vibe, even if it's clear that the narrative is mostly presented that way in order to allow the game to have more consistency in its time loop. And consistency it has! As you find yourself solving each of these murders, the others are still taking place. You may find yourself happening upon guests whose demise is yet to be seen. You may even hear the sound of the gunshot which killed Sixpence earlier in the night. Or you may notice foreshadowing of puzzles to come in the chiming of the bell at 7 o'clock, or the flickering lights at 1 o'clock. This kind of consistency is something that I find invaluable in a time loop game. It signals to the player that each of these events has absolutely happened, and the series of events is immutable in their place in time. Not to say that they can't be changed, obviously that's the whole point of a game like this. But knowing that the loop cannot and will not change on its own tells the player that their actions matter and enhances the experience from a believability standpoint, making it easier to immerse yourself in the game. With this knowledge in mind, it becomes clear that no matter what you do, the guests and staff of the casino will always perform the same actions throughout the night, allowing you to change subtle things about objects and locations, only for them to follow through with their business, now altered by your intervention. This means you can set up a Rube Goldberg machine of sorts, where one action sets off a series of complicated events, eventually resulting in a life saved. Or that's what I would hope for in a game with a premise like this one. Admittedly, that is an extremely complicated thing to pull off. The kinds of systems that are already present in the Sexy Brutale are complex enough to develop without requiring convoluted input from the player and a butterfly effect worth of response from the game itself. Even AAA games struggle to pull something like that off, especially when there are characters that have to respond in kind. As a result, the puzzles in the Sexy Brutale are incredibly simple, usually just a two-step process of get a thing and use it somewhere else. Maybe that wouldn't be so underwhelming if figuring out which thing to use where was a mission on its own, but I often felt like the game was handing me the answers. Witnessing a staff member pick up a gun and finding a blank bullet somewhere else in the casino is a logical setup and solution for a puzzle like the ones in this game. One that felt rewarding given that I only found each of these things through my own exploration and was able to put two and two together on my own. However, most of the puzzles didn't feel as rewarding to me. Oftentimes, a staff member or a guest will think out loud and blurt out something like, "As long as nobody does this thing at this place," that kinda ruins the puzzles for me. I guess the result is the same in that you find a solution by exploring and you're rewarded for listening in on the characters going about their business, but I found that being handed the answers so readily removed any potential for an aha moment that this game had to offer, especially for the longer puzzles. Some of the murders took me up to an hour to solve, but most of that time was spent walking around and listening to the other characters, not thinking or experimenting or acting on any knowledge gained. When I did eventually gather the knowledge I needed, whether it was happening upon an object that could alter the situation or an NPC blurting out the answer, the solutions were generally trivial to perform. Compare that to another indie time loop game like Outer Wilds, which is almost entirely composed of thinking, independent problem solving, and constant aha moments. I think you'll begin to see the contrast that I mean. That's not to say the puzzles in this game are too easy either. I think there's a time and place for easy puzzle design, and I tend to really like games like that too, especially when they have a compelling story to tell. Heck, I think that description may even be pretty representative of Genesis Noir, the last game I covered on the channel. It's just the feeling of being handed a solution that sours the experience for me. But that's where my complaints for the game end. Everything else about the experience is on point and on theme. For example, when you finish each puzzle, the character you've saved will lend you the powers from their mask, expanding your repertoire, giving you more tools for exploration, opening the door to the next puzzle, and allowing you to find more collectibles. Those being invites for each of the guests and playing cards. Finding invites will unlock the backstory for each of the characters, further expanding the system for story and lore delivery in the game for those who might be interested. Cards, on the other hand, are kind of a whole complex thing. Finding them is what you would expect. You'll likely get most of them just by playing through the game and exploring the mansion. The rest require you to venture through the time loop, tracing back your steps in previous puzzles, or going places that you may not have gone otherwise. The only issue with any of this being that there isn't a straightforward way to track which cards you have and haven't collected yet. So if, for example, you're following a guide to find each card, you can't just skip the ones you know you have because there's no real way to know for sure. Kind of like the blue coins in Super Mario Sunshine if you played that. A deficiency like that just makes finding all of the collectibles a bit more tedious and frustrating. But if you're not following a guide and you're just exploring and collecting them for the sake of doing it, it's not really a downside. It really depends on what kind of player you are. On the other hand, the reward for collecting a whole deck of cards is, of course, a secret ending, which is normally a pretty fun reward for that sort of thing. This ending doesn't really add much to the experience, and if anything, detracts from the original ending of the game. It's the kind of thing that feels alright if the act of collecting the cards is fun on its own, but it's nothing to write home about otherwise. Also, shout out to my friend Vec for helping me get footage for this when I was short on time. It helped a ton. All in all, the Sexy Brutale was a fun little experience. The masquerade vibe was exactly what I was looking for this Halloween, and every aesthetic aspect of the game hit its mark, from the music to the visuals and the setting. If you're looking for a cute, laid-back puzzle game for this Halloween, this could be the one for you. For now, I've been Cosmo. Happy Halloween.